founder and CEO of Infragistics. He's going to talk about listen, think, create. He's a tech CEO, and really his whole business is all about innovation. And you're going to be really going to have a great presentation later. But I'm here real quickly to do a commercial for I-Corps at Rutgers, which is sponsoring today's event. And with me today is a bunch of the members of our teaching team. Dunbar Burney, who's the PI on our grant, is here. Mark DeGuzman, our program director. Dan Benderly, who's from Innovation Ventures. Elaine McLean is the director of the Small Business Development Center. And Connie Pascal, who's going to introduce Dean. So those are some members of our teaching team that are here today. And really, it's a team program. We all contribute to I-Corps, and I want to thank them all for joining us today. So just a little bit about I-Corps. I'm going to go through this really quickly. It is a cohort-based program sponsored by the National Science Foundation. Rutgers received a grant, and we started running programs in 2018. The program is team-based, and typical teams have from 2 to 5 people, and Mark's going to explain the roles in a minute. And really, throughout the I-Corps cohort, we train you about business concepts. And the people that participate in our cohort are faculty, staff, students, alumni. But one thing they all share is that they're all innovators, and they're trying to move their innovation from point A to point B. Everybody starts at a different place, and everybody may end at a different place, but what they're doing is really learning. And that's because we provide information and guidance throughout the sessions, but it's a hands-on learning opportunity, and it's really about talking to customers. That's really the foundation of I-Corps is the team going out and talking to people that have problems, and they want to understand about the problem and see if their innovation fits that space. And in order to do that, we give you some tools, specialized software, which you have for 3 months. We also provide our teams with $2,500 reimbursement. It used to be for travel. Now it's used primarily for things such as LinkedIn Learning, online conferences, and professional associations, anything that really can help you to facilitate those interviews. And our teams, again, Mark's going to talk about the makeup of a team, but we can help you by matching you with mentors in some cases, and or fellows, which you're also going to learn about in a minute. Mark?
Yeah, and so I'm Mark DeGuzman. I'm the program manager of Rutgers I-Corps. I served as an entrepreneurial lead in the National I-Corps program, and this program came out of Steve Blank's class from Stanford University, which is based on, it leverages a scientific method through experimentation. Really, the idea is you want to go out and find out what the problems are in the market before you talk about your solution, so you have a good understanding. And so that's why Steve Blank here on the right says that there's no facts inside of the building. You got to get outside the building. A lot of people build their research in a silo, and so we want to make sure the scientists and the researchers get out there and meet with people to build something that people want. And that's why we call it evidence-based entrepreneurship through customer discovery. Go ahead, Lori. And it's important to note that this is, entrepreneurship is like a team sport. Basically, in this program, we require at least 2 out of these 3 team members. The primary one is the entrepreneurial lead, who's the student who really understands, really has entrepreneurial spirit, really wants to understand the market opportunity. They understand the science of the technology, but they really want to go out and find out who the customers are and why. The technical lead, this nutty professor here on the right, this is kind of like the inventor, or usually a faculty member or professor who really understands the science of the technology and understands what it can do. But the entrepreneurial lead really is looking for who it is for. But yeah, everybody works together. And the third person is the industry mentor, somebody from outside the university who can really guide the team to make warm introductions so that the team can get the 25 interviews, which is required for our site program. And a lot of teams have difficulty getting this industry mentor, but we really want to help. So if there's a form you can fill out if you need an industry mentor, we can help connect you to one. And like I said, you need at least 2 to participate, but we can help with that.
Great. So just a few quotes from some of our teams. We had one of our faculty members say that the I-Corps program opened their eyes to something about their innovation that they really hadn't thought of, even though they've been working on it for over 7 years. And the number one thing we hear from students who participate is that they become more confident. That's from, students and our fellows. And just that there's a lot of cross-disciplinary interactions. We have teams from all over the university, any discipline, Camden, Newark, New Brunswick. And a lot of times the teams think they're coming in with one innovation, and after they start talking to potential customers, they realize that they need to change their prototype, or even they may have a different customer segment. And then lastly, it's really, learning about the market by talking to people who, can influence the innovation. So really, we've gotten a lot of great insights for our team members through I-Corps. And just a couple successes, and this is really doesn't even scratch the surface, but we've had over 100 teams go through the program so far, 400 different participants, and through their interviews and insights, they've gotten funding through SBIR, STTR. We just recently had our team from cohort 2 get a big grant of over $1 million. We've had teams get funding through BARDA. We've had University City Science Center awards given to our teams. Rutgers funding, Tech Advance and Health Advance. Teams have gone through the National I-Corps program. And that's because they've really learned a lot through the I-Corps process. And not only they're not only learning about the technology side, but they're really learning about the value that their innovation could give to society, and really finding out what potential customers want. Our student teams have won a ton of competitions and business plans. On the right here is a prototype at the makerspace that one of our teams, AirSys, has built, using it for last mile delivery. So just so many successes that our teams have had. And the fellowship program is something new that we created about a year ago for underrepresented groups to improve diversity and inclusion. And basically, we give an opportunity for students to either participate on a team or help out our cohort. And it's really students that have, typically a good GPA, they're interested in innovation, or they've had leadership positions, but they may not be able to participate in a program like this because they need to get a job or something. So we give them a stipend, and we give them the opportunity to join I-Corps and learn about innovation and entrepreneurship. And they've really been wonderful at helping the teams do interviews, do presentations, and things such as that. Mark, you want to talk about applications real quick?
Yeah, so applications are open. We are recruiting now for the summer cohort, which is going to be run from July 12th to August 5th. So application deadline is June 1st, but it is rolling. So the earlier you apply, the earlier you'll be interviewed. We do have future cohorts as well. So please help us spread the word. So that way we can get more people to know about I-Corps. And fellowship also has a separate website. I'll put that in the chat as well. But if you have questions about it, just reach out to us. You might know someone. So if you know someone, you can send them our way, or tell them to watch this video, or introduce them to us. Our email is here, iCorps@research.rutgers.edu, and then Lori's email and my email, I'll put it in the chat as well.
Great.
But basically,
you so much,
we want to
Mark.
help you. Yeah.
And now, without further ado, Connie Pascal is going to introduce our keynote speaker, what you're all here to see. Connie?
Well, thank you, Lori. It is indeed my pleasure and a real honor to introduce my friend, Dean Guida, who is CEO and founder of Infragistics, a Cranberry, New Jersey-based software firm. And Dean is an experienced entrepreneur. He actually founded Infragistics in 1981 and grew the firm from a small 2-person entity operating out of the bedroom of his house into a worldwide leader in software design and collaboration tools, currently having offices, of course, here in the United States, England, Japan, Bulgaria, Uruguay, and India. And now Infragistics again is a developer and has a UX professional community of more than 1.4 million designers. And Infragistics has achieved and won the highest awards in software development. And they currently have over 1 million people using their enterprise mobility apps. So Dean's 30-year legacy as an entrepreneur is a testament to his passion and commitment to stay the course. And he currently oversees all aspects of Infragistics business operations and corporate direction. Dean is also a leader in the low-code/no-code movement and an amazing friend to Rutgers students. In the past 6 years, Dean has made his Indigo.Studio design software product available to our students for free, giving over 2,500 students the opportunity to learn how to build their own software and websites. What you are about to hear is advice coming from someone who really knows what they're talking about. So without further ado, please welcome Dean Guida.
Well, thank you, Connie, and thank you, Rutgers. And it's been a real pleasure working with Rutgers. It's always great to be around people learning and innovating and exploring. So what I thought I'd start off with, I'll kind of just give a little bit of history of founding Infragistics and like my entrepreneurial journey. And then I really want to share a lot of things we've learned over the last 3 decades around innovation and give some real practical, actionable learnings and share with you what we've learned. So we actually were founded in 1989. So we're over 32 years old. And last week I was interviewed by Forbes.com and they asked me, they said, you know, why did you become an entrepreneur? And it kind of started really early for me. So when I grew up in New Jersey, but then my parents got divorced when I was like 6 years old, and I moved to Miami, Florida. And so really early on, you know, I just saw my mom struggle a little bit, and I was always trying to figure out, okay, how can I make money? And so when I was 8 years old, you know, no one would hire an 8-year-old, but I was able to convince the maintenance man in our apartments to let me do his work, and he paid me off book. And so really early on, I was always trying to figure out how to make money. And that was like kind of a really driver to become an entrepreneur. And then later on, I really learned to love, learn technology. And so when I was about 16, I was saving up money to buy a used car to, you know, take out girls like most 16-year-old boys. But instead of buying a used car, I bought an IBM PC. It was like one of the first IBM PCs. And it was so expensive. I mean, way back that many years ago, it was $4,500, but I decked it out and I loved everything about it. And so I taught myself the program and I really found joy in learning and being able to think of something and then create it through code and then see it come to life. And I went, so I worked all through college, all through high school. And I went to University of Miami, and while I was at University of Miami, I studied systems analysis, which is like deterministic and probabilistic modeling. And I also got a degree in business. I didn't get a computer science degree because I felt that, you know, I learned so much before even going to college how to write software. But while I was at school, I was on the work study program for the VP of HR, and they had this $8 million a month payroll system. And it didn't work. And I told him, hey, I could fix that. And he was like, you can't fix that. You know, we spent all this money on that. And I said, well, you know, you have nothing to lose because you're paying me, you know, $3 an hour. Let me try. And so I did it and I fixed it. And he was so thrilled. And that's where I also just kind of found an intrinsic motivator myself, which is just doing things that people think you can't do. And then after doing something, you know, just seeing the delight and the glitter in their eyes and the happiness. And so so after school, I moved up to New York City because I wanted to be with all the smart people. But what happened was, like, that's where all the money was, but maybe all the smart people were at Microsoft or Borland and these other software companies. But I got a really great lesson in business. I worked down on Wall Street. I worked for IBM for a while, and I was writing different enterprise systems. And one of the best teams I worked on was at AIG, an insurance company. And so myself and one other person from that team created Infragistics, but the other people on our team went on to create some other products that you may not have heard of, or depending on how old you are, but Irwin, which is a database modeling tool. And it was just really great. So that's just my kind of short history into, you know, becoming an entrepreneur. And the other thing that stood out that I really want to encourage is you hear about the young entrepreneur getting $100 million funding, or the young entrepreneur that got this amount of funding. And I'm kind of, which is a fine path to take. But the person at Forbes, when they were interviewing me, was like, yeah, you're kind of unique. Like, you didn't take any money. We're used to talking to these young kids with all this money. And so for the last 32 years, we've funded ourselves. Like, we organically and through just grit and perseverance, and have created a successful company and products. And what I always tell our employees is that, I don't pay you, our customers pay you. And so being so important to delight the customer, take care of the customer, and deliver value and helpful value to the marketplace. So let me introduce a little bit Infragistics, some of our products, and then I want to talk about the fabric of innovation. So at Infragistics, we build UX and UI tools that we sell to application developers and designers. And we sell to some of the biggest software companies out there and the smallest software companies, to enterprises. And our tools have been used over the last 3 decades to build TurboTax, Quicken from Intuit. We're really strong in the financial service market, where most of the equity trading systems and risk management systems are being built with our tools at Morgan Stanley, Credit Suisse, Bank of America, and a lot of other financial institutions, including Fidelity, Charles Schwab. We're used to build all the 911 systems in America, which is kind of interesting. And IKEA runs a lot of their operations built with our tools, and Exxon has built a lot of interesting applications for oil exploration with our tools. So what we do is we build software for application developers to create the user interface. And then we also provide tools where you can prototype, do unmoderated usability tests, and collaborate around your ideas, get feedback from stakeholders, and iterate on that before you have to write code. And then we generate the code. So our core business has been all around creating UX and UI tools for development teams. And one of the things that is so hard to do, but we talk about all the time, and I highly recommend it for everyone listening, is that when we talk about what's important in Infragistics, we talk about, okay, creating simplicity and beauty and happiness in the world, one app at a time. And it's so hard to do. And it doesn't have to even be whether you're building software. It just, if you're really trying to solve a problem, and if you can do it simply, beautifully, and have a really positive impact of whatever you're doing on somebody, it's just a really high bar to be thinking about. And it's kind of transcended everything we do, and how we build software, and how we sell it, how we market it. And so I wanted to share that with you. And towards the end of the talk, I wanted to kind of share some other things that I think could be useful if you want to be an entrepreneur. So let me talk about the main topic, which is, and as Connie said, we're a multinational company. I'll talk a little bit about that, because that's one of the points about the fabric of innovation. And so the first biggest takeaway, probably the most important takeaway in this talk, is that everyone can be an inventor, everyone can be an innovator, and everyone can be an entrepreneur. And it's like this word that's so scary and magical, and it's not me and others can do it. It's just not true. And the biggest barrier that a lot of entrepreneurs or innovators or people in general have is listening to your inner voice. I say it all the time: don't listen to your inner voice. Don't let that talk you out of not doing something. Don't listen to the naysayers, because there's 1,000 naysayers around new ideas and innovation. And now you want to listen to them because they're going to have good ideas around problems or blockers in your idea, but don't let them not let you think about something, do something, create, and keep learning to do it. So I think that's like the biggest thing, where people say to themselves, well, I had this great idea, and then and then someone went and created something, and like, I had that idea. And so that's like the single biggest thing I kind of want to communicate, is that don't listen to your inner voice, but think, do, and go out and try and solve some good problems out there. So what are some of the things that we've learned over the last 3 decades? And I'm kind of calling it, the fabric of innovation and how to nurture innovation. Is when you think of an idea, whether it's a vision for a company, or it's a vision for a product or a service, what you need to do is you need to paint a picture of what it looks like once you've completed that innovation, that idea, that company. You know, how does it look? How does it feel? How will it make everyone better? And so you really have to really think through and and paint that picture of your vision, your innovation, or product, because most of the time you need to bring teams and people along with you. And there's nothing more inspiring than for everyone to align and really understand where you're heading directionally and what you're trying to solve. And by doing that and talking in tones like affirmations, like saying when we, you know, really speaking to how it will be when you get there. So things like, you know, the best developers, designers, and tech companies use our products to build simple and beautiful applications. You know, really talking in affirmations and painting that picture of the future is another part of just driving innovation and kind of creating the space for innovation. The other thing that I've learned with 20, I'll tell you a little story. So it's diversity of thinking. And let me kind of explain what that is through a story. About 21 years ago, I attended this Center for Creative Leadership, and it really changed my life. I mean, it helped me have a better marriage, helped me be a better manager. And it's a really advanced program where they do all kinds of psychological tests on you. They interview your spouse, they interview your coworkers, they interview who you report to, who's reporting to you. And it's unbelievable how advanced psychology is. And what they do is they give you they put you in these tough situations. They give you like experiential learning. So like it pulls out like the best and the worst in you. And you learn about, oh, my strength can be a weakness. And there was like 2 points to this. One is about diversity of thinking, but the other was where your strength can be your weakness. Like I really care about people. And I scored myself a 5. And then everyone else scored me and they scored me a 2. I was like devastated. I was like, how could everyone score me so low? And what I learned was like, I'm a very kind of structured person and just trying to get things done. And so when I was working with teams and people, I was not very personable, and I was just really focused on the task at hand. And then it was over. And so I kind of like gave this perception of not caring about people. So, you know, that's part of innovation, is just self-awareness and reflection. And the big thing that I learned was the first day we kept getting put on different teams, and there was this girl who was like crazy off the wall person. I'm like, oh man, I hope she's not on my first team, you know. And so of course she's on my first team, and we all went outside, and we had all these teams, and we had to throw this ball around and talk about our best team experience. And then the coach said, okay, well, now I need you to do it in the same order, but do it in a minute or two. So we're all like, oh man, like trying to figure out how to solve this problem. And then they come around and put pressure, and you're like, what's wrong with you guys? Everyone else is done. Well, this girl thought differently. She was like, hey, let's all get in the same order of the way we threw it around randomly. And then we ended up like getting in the same order, and we just kind of rolled the ball down our hands. And then we did it within like 30 seconds. And so like the big learning for me is like, I used to hire everyone that thought like me, talked like me, and agreed with me. And it's unbelievable when you do that, how much you always solve the problem the same way. And so you really need to appreciate people that are different, think different than you, and you'll come up with great ideas and take a left turn and then build on that idea and then solve a problem in a better way. And so the old me would be like, oh, if someone's in a meeting and they're not speaking up, they're not engaged, they don't care, or they have nothing to say. And but after learning this, the new me was like, hey, everyone's different. People process information differently, they think differently, they have different personalities. And if you go to that person the next day and say, hey, what do you think about that problem? You'll get amazing information. And so so when we try and build teams, like diversity of thinking and just respecting different people, the way they think, how they interact, is a great way to create a space for innovation. And it was just a really, really big learning for me. Now it's a lot more difficult to run teams, like that, because when everyone thinks the same and everything, teams have more harmony and get along better. But when you have different thinking and conflict like that, you know, it's a little harder to manage, but you will build and solve problems in a much better way, and not always share the same thought process in how you're approaching problem. And at Infragistics, we purposely created a multinational company. And so as Connie said, like, we have dev teams in Uruguay and Montevideo. We have dev teams in Bulgaria and Sofia, Bulgaria, Eastern Europe. We have dev teams here in New Jersey and across the US. And we purposely, and then we have teams, not necessarily dev teams, but we have teams in Tokyo and India and London. And but we purposely created a multinational company because we wanted to build software for the world and to take in those cultural things that people are different all over the world. And so when you do that, you have better innovation, diversity of thinking, cultural thinking, and really trying to build software for the world and not be so myopic in, oh, this is how we do it in the US, or this is how we do it in Europe, and think broadly from that point of view. The other big thing in the fabric of innovation is, and you hear it a lot, it's very excuse me, it's a very popular topic now, but it's a critically important point, is creating psychological safety. And really the leaders and even the indirect leaders need to create this, to create trust, to really have a creative process, to really make collaboration happen. And so it's up to all of us to make people feel very comfortable about speaking up, about sharing their ideas, about sharing their point of view, because it's really the only way, not the only way, but it's the best way to solve problems. And so some ways that I use, and there's more than this, and I'm sure other ways, but like to create trust on a team, it's like, if you do what you say, that creates trust on the team, just by default, whether it's you're the leader or the team member, just doing what you say. Then the other is like showing up every day as your authentic self. Like I'm a big believer in, oh, you have to be, you know, professional. You shouldn't say this. You shouldn't show emotion. I'm not a believer in that. I'm a believer, you know, in the definition of that. I'm a believer in, you need to show up authentically every day. It's exhausting not to be yourself, and you should show emotion, and of course, you know, there's nuances to that, but you should show emotion, and it's just part of being human. And when you show up authentically every day, it creates trust, and people will trust you because you're just being yourself. And the other is where you, like what we do as an executive team, we meet every Tuesday for 2 hours. And what we do is we all check in, and we check in professionally, what's going on professionally. We also check in personally. And I can tell you, since we started doing that, our team has bonded so much better when you kind of share something personal, and you just bond with people, because people are people and they're human, and it creates that safety to trust someone and to speak up and to collaborate and to share. And so that's been another really important thing in innovation and just running teams, is just creating that trust. And you know, people could share a big thing personally, a small thing, but it's unbelievable how much of a bond that creates with people. And then some more tips around creating trust on the team is, you should publicly praise people, and but when you're doing coaching or something, it should be privately. And so, and not just praise anything, but praise a good work done, and then celebrate together. It's not always so easy to celebrate together. Whenever you can physically get together and celebrate, if you can't physically get together, then just celebrating wins and successes as a team and company. And all of these things just help you deal with conflict, friction, pressure. It's and in the end, this is an innovation talk, but I got to tell you, it's fundamental in innovation. I mean, innovation most of the time is a team sport, and these are some important pieces to really to drive and create a space for innovation. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to say, go ahead and put questions in the chat, because at the end, then we're gonna kind of go through the questions and answers, and also you could also just kind of like speak up in the video and ask questions as well. But so I'm you know, we'll do that at the end. So also I wanted to share that you know, people talk about intuition and gut, and when I was early on, I wasn't so sure about like, should I follow gut and intuition? And like, I could tell you every time I made a decision that went against gut and intuition, I was wrong. And so I'm a huge believer in gut and intuition. And I was kind of happy to hear Mark kind of review this. I forgot what you guys called it, but the scientific method of hypothesis. I'm a huge believer in that. And I think a lot of the business books and like kind of cool marketing words wreck some of these ideas, at least is my point of view. So like people talk about fail fast. You know, I personally don't like that term. I mean, I like what it's supposed to do, but I think you have to put that term in context. So what you really want to do is create a hypothesis of how you see the world and how you think what you're going to innovate or do is going to improve that world. And you're really trying to create a hypothesis that you believe in. You're not trying to fail, but you use data, you go out and talk to people in the world. And that was also great that you guys were talking about that in the beginning. I mean, you talk to customers, you talk to competitors, you talk to analysts, you talk to other tech providers, you just talk to everyone. But you create this hypothesis and then you go test it. And then you go test your hypothesis in the market, you collect more data, and you do A/B testing, and you continually improve your idea and your innovation and your hypothesis. So it is failing fast, but it's not the objective. It's the, you know, you're trying to achieve, but what you're doing is you're learning what's not working by, you know, creating a prototype or having a hypothesis, testing it, improving it, talking and iterating on that. So I always like to make a distinction around that. And then the other thing that I like to make a distinction around is MVP, minimal viable product. It's like, maybe it's just a personal thing for me. It's another thing that I think is misused in the industry. And so people say, oh, just create a minimal viable product. But guess what? If you're actually starting a company and you create a minimal viable product and it doesn't have competitive advantage, and you're going to start to put sales and marketing behind something, it's a bad idea. And so when we do things, it's like, no, you have to first have a hypothesis of something that's going to add value to the market. And then you have to go and talk to customers and talk to peers and talk to everyone about it. Then you have to go test it, but you have to clearly define why you have competitive advantage over what's already in the market, you know, or said another way, you know, why are you adding value to it? And so I'm a big believer in MVP. The definition is okay, but add to it that you are delivering additional value and competitive advantage to what's in the market. So I guess some other things that that I've learned along the way, and is how important having conviction around your idea is, and having grit to kind of punch through all the barriers that you have to go through. So like everyone hears a lot of the like great successes in the world, but 99% of the rest of us, which is most of the world, there's 1,000 barriers you have to punch through, and you have to have that conviction and that grit to keep doing it, staying out of it, and to realize your product, your innovation, your vision. And hand in hand with that goes with just this openness to keep learning, and that the curiosity, because if you don't keep learning all along the way and be open to ideas and listen to people because you want to build the best product, it's just a critical trait to be successful. And so that's another like important point that I wanted to share. And then, because I'm in the tech space and we build software, I wanted to talk a little bit about big tech and how can you compete against them, and how can you make decisions? And so the challenge that we all have today is big tech keeps getting bigger. They have a lot of talent. They keep hiring more talent. They have huge sales, marketing, and R&D resources and capability. They get all the press, and they learned how to do things in an agile way. So no longer can you say, oh, they're a big company, they're slow moving. Sometimes they are, but no, they've learned agile ways. And but I got to tell you, we can't just leave it to big tech to innovate or to create better solutions in the world, because they won't do it. And it's up to us to do it. And so, have the courage and the perseverance and grit to go compete, because there's really no choice today. You have to compete against these big tech companies, and you have a choice. I mean, the best choice is when there's a green field, a problem in the market no one's really solved, or big tech hasn't solved, or they're not in there. So those are the best problems, or the best areas in market to go in, where there's just a green field. You don't have fierce competition. You don't have to compete against tech, and that's the ideal situation. Now, those are hard to come up with, and if you do, God bless you. That's awesome. The other decisions you have is you could add value on top of the big, a big company's current product. And that's kind of the fastest path to money, the fastest path to revenue. And it's easily accepted in the market. You're adding value to something already in the market. The problem with that is every time they release a new version of their software, you're like sweating. You're like, oh my God, I added value to it, and now they just added that feature, and there goes your revenue stream, and there goes everything. So while it is the fastest path to money, there is it's fraught with danger. The third way is, which does take a lot of courage, is that you see a problem in the market that big tech or some large competitors not really solving, but it's a huge market. But you have to build the baseline technology that is the same as what's already in the market. But then where you saw competitive advantage, and where you saw differentiation, and where you saw opportunity to solve additional problems or go at it in a different way, that's a great way to build a sustainable, lasting company. Now, it's scary because it takes a lot of investment to build a baseline to just to compete against what the big tech already has, or big company already has. But you have to have a novel innovation, not novel, but a good innovation to build on top of it. So it's not always easy, where sometimes it's a long road. You have to build the technology that is the same, but then you can start adding your innovation and your competitive advantage. And then, because it's such a big market, you can win market share, and you can build a sustainable organization. So I thought, those are kind of three different ways to look at that. So I want to kind of wrap up with maybe sharing my screen here. We created this innovation lab, and I just want to share why we created the innovation lab. And it is, it's actually just internal for Infragistics, but I thought I'd share it because I think it's important to hear why we did it. And so let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so hopefully you guys are seeing my screen.
Dean, we have a couple of questions. You want to ask them now or after your innovation lab
Oh,
discussion?
you can ask them now. Yeah.
Okay. So Ken, do you want to ask your question? You have a couple of questions, so maybe you can ask them. You can unmute if you want.
Oh, tricky. Okay, now you go back because the threaded. One of the things was just, I guess, a specific one. Hey, so far, great. This is awesome. So thank you for sharing. Does Infragistics have any relation or supports to the credit union industry, federal credit unions and banks?
Well, we have we don't have like a direct relationship with like the credit unions themselves, but like we're selling to all the banks and their dev teams to build software that service it. So so indirectly we have relationships with them, or if it's I don't know if it's a direct credit union. If we have as a customer, we have a lot of customers. I know our bigger customers, but maybe there's a follow-on question to that.
Well, there may be. I was just thinking of that as you were speaking, just because you talk about market share and needs. A lot of credit unions going to third-party vendors who actually, at that point, might be using some of your tools as well on insurance and other platforms and financial services to sort of host their. A lot of credit unions don't have great front-end platforms for digital banking.
Yes.
The big banks, you can do 30,000 things. The smaller ones are still surprisingly lagging on some of their applications. So that was just a sort of a side question.
Yeah, well, what we're doing for that is like companies that may not have as many resources as like a large bank within Indigo, which is our digital application design platform. We have there's something called design systems, which a design system represents colors, fonts, UI patterns, screens, all the things that you want to build really easy to use applications. And so we created this design system, and we have templates like for the banking industry, templates for the insurance industry, where you could take these kind of app templates, pull them into Indigo and change them, modify them, or just reuse them as a way to kind of have those templates to build a financial service application. And we're doing it for different industries, and it's in our dev team now. Like, so you can't get it from our website just yet, but you will be able to in like 1 month. But yeah, we sell to a lot of startups. We sell to a lot of companies that don't have huge dev teams, and we sell to people that may not have design and dev teams. And so we're trying to help them build great experiences faster.
Great, thanks. And I see, Connie, you put in a bunch of the links. Awesome. My second question flipped the script a little bit too, and I think you might have answered it a little bit on the greenfields aspect. Guide directions on where students may be able to look or explore. I mean, I would imagine a lot of times people find needs and sort of gaps in what's being provided by their own experiences. But is there any other place you would suggest students to sort of explore, whether it's blogs or innovation hubs and things like that as well?
Yeah, I mean, first it comes down to like you have an idea, so that's your hypothesis. You have this idea, and then how do you get ideas? Well, it's kind of what you said, which is like you have to be out and about. Like certainly you can use your browser and investigate. What are other companies doing? What are the big techs doing? And kind of get insight there. You can attend a lot of industry conferences. That's always really useful to collaborate and talk to others, talk to customers, just talk to a lot of people to vet your idea. And really it's, you're kind of like visualizing what you see in patterns out there. And you're always kind of building on things that are already in the market, but you're putting a lot of different patterns you're observing in the market together to solve some new problem. And so yeah, my advice is to first come up with your idea, or if you're trying to do idea, if you're going just through the ideation phase where you don't really have the idea yet, it's using the web, looking at what's already in the market, it's going to conferences, it's talking to a lot of people, customers, analysts, competitors, to formulate your idea, and then go validate it. Like I'll give you, for example, when we invest in our different marketing channels to create awareness and help the buyer's journey through the whole customer funnel, the customer journey, like I don't give our teams all our budget. Like they get money to experiment in the different marketing channels. And so when they find out how we can get our best ROI, then we load it up with more money to go do that. And so it's really the same thing in innovation and product development as well. It's like, you have your hypothesis, don't spend a lot of money and time, just keep vetting it and improving it and testing it. And then when you start building confidence, and then you put more resources and more money into doing it. So it's really that same approach.
Thank you.
You want to share your slide, Dean?
Oh yeah, are you seeing my screen or no?
Not yet,
No.
not yet.
Oh, okay, hold on. I thought I was sharing
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Okay, share screen 1. Well, that's weird. Why isn't it sharing it? Oh, here we go. Sorry, share. Okay, so
Coming up.
are you, what are you
Yep.
seeing?
We
Welcome
see
to the
that-
Infragistics Innovation Lab.
Yeah,
Yep.
so what we did was we created this this innovation lab, and why did we do it? Because here's what happens when you have a product in market. It really slows you down. One, you're fixing bugs. Two, your customers are asking for incremental features, so you need to do that. And you're like really driven by sales and marketing and to have growth that way. And so we created the innovation lab at Infragistics so that you can have a hypothesis, have an idea, and after you vetted it and some of the things I was talking about here, you clearly articulated and painted the picture of the future. You've gone out and collaborated and talked to customers and internal people at Infragistics. Then we give a space. It's really creating a space where you can work on that idea and not have the pressures of revenue and being in the market. And so so we created this innovation lab, and we've actually funded over $50 million worth of investment through this. But it's really creating that space for our team. And then and we kind of put Rutgers in here as well, because Rutgers is so into the entrepreneur and innovation, and this is kind of like our innovation process. Idea, create the articulate it, paint that picture, share and collaborate internally, test it with a prototype, and then start like building it. And so some of the things that we've put through our innovation lab is Indigo Design, which is a low code design to code system. And we're really innovating there. I mean, and so that's one product. Another is our embedded analytics. We built an embedded analytic tool for software companies and enterprises that they can take and just embed and have machine learning. They can have dashboards that have connections to all of these different oops, sorry, that's my sorry about that. and so it's this whole embedded analytic product. And then what we're in pre-market with is Slingshot, which is a digital collaboration platform that I wanted to. Now we're about to enter public preview in the next month or two. But if anybody, if you go to this slingshotapp.io, even though we're not in market, we're kind of building out the website and the product. You can go and you can download it and start using it. And we have a freemium model, so like even if you start using it, once we start charging, you'll still be able to use it for free. But I encourage that as well. And then the last thing that I wanted to share was really about what we call the Infragistics way. And I think it's like useful, and you guys can borrow this, but it's on Infragistics.com about us. And what's the Infragistics way? It describes the practices that guide our actions, decisions. It's who we are, it's who we want to be, and it's essential to our success. And so when you read these value statements, or oh, we're trustworthy, we'll delight our customer, like what this is doing, if you go to this website and read it, it's really kind of given a more prescriptive way of how to create a culture that can innovate and can compete. And so like, I'll just kind of go through it really briefly. Do the right thing always. Be fanatical about response. Delight the customer. Be curious and innovative. And then, what does that mean? And we say what it means. And, check your ego. Be data-driven. Bring it every day. Show grit. Make craftsmanship personal. Practice blameless problem solving. Look from the outside in, which is so important. So many times people solve problems from the inside out, and that's like you really want to look from the inside, the outside in. And anyways, I wanted to just share this with you guys because I think all of these are attributes of innovation and how to create, great teams that will innovate. And then you may have different ones that are more meaningful to you, but I wanted to share this with you guys on the topic of innovation because it's really it's kind of foundational. Because innovation and teamwork and being an being an inventor and solving problems, it kind of like encapsulates all of this. So I wanted to kind of wrap up with that, and we can go to more questions now.
If anybody has a question, you can either put it in the chat or go on mute, whichever you're comfortable doing. But I put in the chat, Dean, I love the practice blameless problem solving, because it's really, it's about moving your innovation forward and getting ahead. It doesn't matter if you made a mistake or whatever, just move forward and take it to the next level. I think that's really, really good. So many people will never admit they made a mistake or did something wrong, but it doesn't help you move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also creates trust too. If there was a problem and then somebody really gave you a hard time about that, like the next time you're not going to share it so openly, and which is not healthy and not good for any company. And so creating that environment of okay, yeah, there's always problems and we have to just keep solving them.
Dean, I have a question. So we sometimes see innovations where there's already a lot of other similar products on the market already. And so there's a lot of competition, and there are, the big names sometimes. And so how do you know when to just throw your hands up and just give up because like, oh, the big guys got it already? Or when do you know when to push forward and be like, I can do it better? How do you know when to decide that?
Yeah, so I think it starts before you even start, which is that you see what they're doing and you see the direction they're heading in, and your idea is really valuable to the market and better than what they're doing. And so like we did that with Slingshot. Like I could tell you 2/3 of our own employees and our board, no one believed we could compete against Microsoft, and probably still some of them don't believe it, but we have a lot of conviction around it. So it really starts first with why do you think you're going to add more value to the market than what they're doing? And so if you can't answer that, then you shouldn't start. And then it's just the road of hard knocks, because no one stands still. They keep advancing their product, but it takes like a lot of courage and perseverance and conviction in the idea. And like I said, like like the big markets, it takes time to build a product that's like baseline, where you're not actually at the point where you're showing that competitive advantage, but you have to have that roadmap and vision. And that's why you start and do it, And so, that's how I, answer that question. So when do you throw the towel in? I mean, if you really, your ideas, if you don't think that what you're doing is going to have an advantage in the market and value to customers. But a lot of times, like if you have a lot of investment there, you pivot a little bit, and it's a very organic and dynamic. Everything's so dynamic. So sometimes it's not just quitting, but it's like, okay, you've built up assets and now you have to just keep adjusting to market conditions. But I would say this, what's really important to know, if you're on the sidelines, you're never going to win, you're just never going to win. And it's just scary to get in the game, and it's always scary, but that's where courage comes in. It's doing things that you're afraid when you're afraid, it's like, you just got to keep going for it and keep thinking and doing. That's why, like when we started, like Mark and Connie and Lori, like, oh, what should we call it? It's like, I forgot the exact order of the words, but it's like, think, do, create, learn, and just keep doing it, Yeah,
that's great.
So Dean, did you create Slingshot, or did Infragistics create Slingshot because you saw a need in the market, that there was, the productivity tools that were out there didn't solve like your company's needs?
Yeah, that's exactly why, because we saw everyone even Gartner was defining productivity tools as whatever big tech came out with. So I don't know if you know this, but like Gartner says, oh, like 4 or 5 years ago, collaboration productivity is about video conferencing and screen sharing, right? But is that really what teamwork's about? It's a part of teamwork. And then, and then all of a sudden there's chat. Oh, the collaboration and team performance and where work gets done is in chat. No, that's a piece of it, right? Yeah, modern communication for sure. Video chat for sure, communication for sure. And now it's starting to incorporate task management, project management. So now they're saying that. But so what we saw was all these point solutions, and what we were caring about was like, how can we have business teams get extraordinary results? How can you drive to have a higher performing team and have growth in your company? And so that was like our thesis, which is like, okay, there's nothing in the market that like really is trying to, have the essence of driving high performing teams. And so like our thesis is like, you can run a high performing team. Like, okay, trust is a really important. We're helping with trust a little bit, not all the way, but people that are getting extraordinary results they're making decisions with data. So we have data analytics built into the platform. People that set goals and objectives and give autonomy to execute, which I was kind of talking about here, where you directionally set people. Everyone knows the goal or objective, so they can make decisions. They have autonomy to execute. And when you give people autonomy to execute, you get intrinsic motivation. You get innovation, because then people think of new ways to solve the problem, and you're happy because, well, it's going to achieve the goal or direction. So that's another core philosophy in Slingshot. Alignment, setting goals, and strategies. And then the other is keeping everyone in the know. And so these are like all really core. And then creating a culture of accountability. And sometimes people say, oh, well, we have accountability, but like accountability is not just someone being accountable. It's when you ask someone to do something, do they clearly understand what you want them to deliver? So it helps the communication and like, what do you want them to do? When do you want them to do it? What does it look like when it's done? Oh, maybe they don't know how to do it. It gives space to like tell them how to do it, teach them. So all these principles we incorporated into Slingshot. And basically, like functionally what Slingshot is, it's a digital collaboration platform that integrates content management, chat, data analytics, task and project management, discussions, or all on a modern, simple and beautiful experience. And so yeah, that's why we're we've spent a lot of the money and time going to market with Slingshot. And it kind of what I talked about in my talk, it's like I'm sharing what we're living, so like people are saying every day to me, well, why are we diverting resources from our UX and UI tools? We're doing so well there. And oh, why do you think you can compete against Microsoft Teams? And why do you think, it's like, well, man, have you used Teams? Like people use,
Or
it's just
Asana. Asana's another one.
Microsoft, it's like, it's just like, oh, well, and so there's every day I deal with naysayers, and but we're gonna win, it's that conviction. And it's $100 billion market. Like, oh, well, are we gonna stay in niche markets? And and technology keeps changing, so we're always running. But these are all the things that hopefully I shared in my talk to people.
So I'm seeing, even though you've been around a really long time, you still have that innovator's passion and that entrepreneur's drive and energy. I want to be respectful of your time. We're over time, but we do have 2 more questions. Are you willing to stay for 2 more questions?
Yeah.
So Tolo, you're first. If you want to go off mute, I'm going to let you ask your question of Dean.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like in a B2B model, like what are some of the things that you evaluate for the price point for your licenses? So like maybe similar to Canvas or Blackboard that license their product to universities to use. So that's my question.
Yeah, it's really hard. Pricing is so important and it's so hard. So I could just share how we do it, and then it does become trial and error. So like, here's how we price Slingshot, for example. We could charge so much more for Slingshot, but we're not going to. But you look at competition and you look at what their price points are. We also have a freemium model in Slingshot, and it's really hard to, it's like a Goldilocks problem. It has to be just right. Like, what's the right free features? What's the right, paywalls for people to upgrade? And so we look at competition, we look at how the customer will see value, and then we also look at how can we have viral? What are the features in the product to have viral? And also, does price inhibit viral? So we made sure that price doesn't inhibit viral, both in the features. Like, you can always use it free. Like, if you paid for Slingshot subscription and you want to collaborate with somebody, yeah, you can always collaborate with people because you get 2 free workspaces, always free. So it doesn't inhibit your own usage. And then we look at, okay, if somebody's going to buy for their team, it's this price point, and they'll buy it. But then how do you kind of expand out into the organization? And so do you want to make it easy for them to buy a license when it's maybe only not an edge case, but they only need it for some piece of the value? And it's a very tricky, difficult thing to price your product right. And what's really important in pricing your product is to understand reoccurring revenue, the lifetime value of a customer, and churn in your customer base. So these are all business models you go through, and it all starts with average selling price, which is what you're asking about, the price point. But like, what's great about software is like, oh, okay, well, we're going to charge $100 a year, but the lifetime value of the customer is 10 years. So it's really, $1,000 per customer that we acquire. And so that drives how much money you might spend to acquire a customer. And then what's the churn? How many people are you going to lose annually? And then how do you backfill that and then drive new business, new seats, so that you do have growth as a business? But yeah, pricing is hard, and it's so important.
Thanks. That's a great feedback on that. Jada, do you want to ask your question now?
Yes. Hi. My question is for introverted and technical innovators with a lot to offer. What's the best way to market yourself as an entrepreneur, or like market your product without putting too much pressure on masking your personality?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, you can think through how you want your product seen, how you define value, what your key messages are, and the problems you're solving with your product. You can think quietly through all that, and then you can express that through your website copy and videos and that. So like, you could be in the background orchestrating all this go to market messaging and value and communication. And then I'm a big believer in simple and beautiful, and so like, you probably want to get a designer involved. You want it to be beautiful, and so I mean, that's what I recommend, in terms of like speaking, through digitally speaking. But then if you have to go and pitch and talk to people and do that, well, yeah, it's courage. Like, you have to have some courage. Like, you have to do it. Like, you can't not do it. And the best thing to do is prepare. Like, prepare your main key points, and that way you feel really confident in your conversation, and you have that. And so that I guess that's my answer.
And it gets better with time, Jada. The more times you do it, and if you're prepared, it gets much easier. Nobody likes talking at first, but once you do it again and again and again, you become much more comfortable. And we say you don't grow unless you stretch yourself outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, and I tell you, we have a lot of introverts, amazingly creative introverts, and I always work like in a meeting to call. Like, I think everyone should talk, and so I always call them, like, you have to share your idea or your thought. Like, you're so smart, and we all have to benefit from your point of view. Now, maybe no one will, maybe we don't agree with it, but it's still a smart point of view, And so it's, yeah.
And one thing, Jada, I put it in the chat there, apply for the fellowship, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have people who really are innovators, but they don't have a team and they kind of like are individuals. They really learn how to communicate better and how to interact with the other people. And over the course of the I-Corps program, you really learn a lot about, and most people get a lot of confidence. So that way you don't have to mask anything. Like you just be yourself, like Dean said earlier, but you're able to do it with confidence and, don't worry about what people will think, because you're really trying to get down to the bottom of what the problem is. It's like you're a problem solver.
Yeah.
So it's
Right
like you're on a mission to help solve this problem, right?
Yeah, and just to highlight that, yeah, just be yourself. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You're just being authentic, just be yourself. Don't be someone else. And like Mark said, like you'll people will see that you're really passionate about your idea. They'll read your body language, and if they'll know if you're nervous or not. But everyone gets nervous, but like you just it's just being yourself and communicating what really what you care about.
And you're right, Dean, about calling on people, because it's so important to get everybody's ideas, and you may miss somebody who's an introvert who isn't willing to share unless you call on them and try to get them to speak, because they do have great ideas. They just may be shyer about it. And they often have better ideas than those of us who are outspoken, who are always talking all the time.
No doubt about that.
And of course, you have to learn to listen.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're way over time, but Dean, I want to thank you so much for sharing all these great information about Infragistics and your history, your past, and how you see innovation at your company. I loved some of the mantras that you have there, and some of them they really do align with I-Corps about customer discovery and delighting the customer. So I really appreciate everything you've done for Rutgers in terms of providing the software and also giving this talk today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Thank you, Lori, and thank you, guys.
Great having you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean, so much.
Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Thanks.
Thanks, Dean.
Thanks for the intro, Connie.
You're welcome. My pleasure.